Hey guys, welcome back to the second episode of Shop Talk. I'm here in Valparaiso, Indiana at Blythe Sports with the owner of Blythe's, David Blythe. And today we want to talk about concealment handguns. Now Dave, I know you get a lot of people coming into the shop that say, hey, either they're a long-time gun owner, they're looking for something new, or you get the novice coming in that's looking for that first-time carry gun. Let's talk about the novice first. When you get a new gun buyer coming in, just got their concealed carry permit, they're looking for something to buy, what direction do you send them down? What path do you send them down? And what do you recommend? And how do you help them find that handgun?
Well, definitely when it's a novice, the first recommendation is definitely training. You know, whether it's an NRA basic pistol course or a more advanced tactical course, you know, just to kind of get them in and familiarize them with the function of semi-automatic firearms or revolvers, you know, just make them safer and more familiar with firearms.
I think that's definitely the most critical component because I've worked in gun shops in the past as well, and a lot of people will come in, buy a handgun, ask you for a holster for it. They'll go right out to their car, put the gun on, never test fired it, never had any experience with the gun whatsoever, and now they're around town carrying the gun. That's the worst possible situation to find yourself in.
Right. And when we actually try to fit them for a firearm that works for them, you know, a lot of things come into consideration. Size, and not only does it the size of the gun, but you know, how they're going to carry it. And you know, a lot of females have a harder time carrying concealed on the body because of the style of clothing they wear. You know, and then there's larger guys that wear big loose shirts that it's no problem. So you know, something in a double stack would be easier to conceal for maybe a larger male, and that wouldn't be concealable on you know, a female frame. So, you know, size of the gun and size of the person and the clothing they wear do make a difference. You know,
by the way, this is a double stack, a little G26,
GLOCK 26, which you know previously was about as small a firearm as there was out there in a good 9mm. But nowadays the whole trend is single stacks, and that's kind of most of what we have laid out here. You know, anything from shields to Walther PPSs, the XDS. Actually, the XDS is the one we don't have out here.
That's all right. We'll forgive you. You got just about everything else. Yeah, and the single stacks are taken off simply because they're so thin. When you take a look at a double stack like this and a single stack like this 938 SIG, you'll notice it's really skinny. And in my opinion, there are two critical dimensions to a handgun and how concealable it is. First of all, the barrel length doesn't mean much. No. I mean, you can hide a 10-inch barrel. If you're carrying the pistol down like this, you can run it down your pants. If anything, you're just going to get an extra, you know, get a date, right? What you're worried about is the length of the butt, and when it's carrying like this, how long it is, and how thick it is will dictate not only how concealable it is, but how comfortable it is to carry all day long. So the single stacks, like you said, are really coming into vogue. And inside the waistband carry is really good. Like I'm actually carrying a little shield right here in a Travis Haley Incog, and I do so because I can hide it easily under a light shirt, and that's why people are going after these things. Yeah,
I mean, definitely the fastest growing section of the firearms market right now. And another thing that I address to them is the style of action and which safety features they want, because really that's the big issue when you're going to carry it. If they like the double action only, double the single action, which means you have the heavy trigger pull followed by the light trigger pull, or single action only like the SIG 938. That's going to be the light trigger pull every single time, but you will have that external safety you'll have to deal with.
Right, and that's just basically a miniature 1911.
Right.
I mean, this thing is tiny for a 9mm. That's what's so impressive about this thing. But the hammer must be cocked, and you have this manual safety. And if you're going to carry this thing around in a pocket or in a purse or something like that, that safety can get knocked off. It's fairly positive, but you want to make sure that you have it in a good holster. I think that's really key when you're taking a look at a small handgun like this.
Sure, and you know, when we talk about novices coming in to find their first carry gun, they may not be comfortable carrying with a single action with the safety on. With a certain amount of training, there's no reason that they can't, but you know, it's all about their comfort level and what they prefer.
I would definitely say that's more of an experienced shooter's.
Absolutely, yeah, it tends to be. And you know, then you revert back. Novices tend to go with something with a heavier trigger pull, and somebody who's going to carry it inside the pocket occasionally. The heavier trigger pull is definitely something that's sold more to that customer.
Right, and the reason for that, guys, and we'll use this little Ruger 380. This pistol has a very heavy trigger pull on the first shot. I'm going to go ahead and cock it here so I can actually show you. But when I pull the trigger, it's heavy, and it's drawing the hammer back to fire. When you carry that in a pocket, if you want to do a pocket carry type of thing, this will fit in a pocket. but I highly recommend you put it in a holster. Some people don't. If you don't, having keys, loose change, stuff like that in there can definitely be a problem. Probably not as much so with this particular handgun, but if you pick a handgun like the WALTHER PPS, which just has the dingus on the trigger for your safety, striker fired, something hits that trigger while it's in your pocket, you're pulling your keys out, key hits there, comes up, blam, you just send a round down your leg. So a lot of folks do, like, as Dave was saying, the double action trigger pull. But so what else? Let's say, well, the novice is looking for something that's small, it's concealable, that they can shoot easily. I think hand size has a lot to do with it, like you're saying, the particular body type. A female may not be able to get her hand around, you know, a thick grip like this G26, but she may wind up finding something more like the NANO, BERETTA NANO here, more comfortable. But you also have to be aware of the controllability of the handgun. I mean, a novice, you give them an XDS 45, and the first time they touch off a round, they may scare themselves and not like to shoot the handgun. The last thing you want is somebody scared of their defensive arm.
Yeah, absolutely. Recoil is definitely a big issue with beginner shooters, and not only beginner shooters, but more experienced shooters. Sometimes, especially with small handguns, the limp wristing is an issue. I know that you've tested that on firearms before, and if they can't properly control that gun, it could lead to malfunction. So you want to make sure it's something that they can handle the recoil, not only, you know, strength-wise, but also for the function of the firearm.
Sure. And then when would you recommend something like this, little Smith & Wesson?
You know what? It's hard. It's hard to convince somebody that they don't have a need for a small 38 special revolver. I mean, they're so usable. I don't get many back on trade because of that. I mean, you know, people always tend to have a purpose for it. It's got a inherent reliability. I mean, the revolver action is very, very good. Quality's there with Smith & Wesson or Ruger, or, you know, a lot of the revolver manufacturers. And the round is potent and the recoil is manageable. So.
Yeah. Yeah, the nice thing about this, if you're looking for a firearm to keep in your car, which I don't always recommend because I've been broken into, but if you have a truck gun, a revolver's a great truck gun simply because there's no springs involved. You can load the cylinder, put it in the glove compartment, and it can sit there for the next 10 years, and it's going to fire typically when you pull the trigger. And I won't want to get into the whole magazine spring thing. Yes, you can leave magazines loaded for extended period of times. They're not going to break down. It's the working of the spring that actually breaks it down, but I don't want to get into that. It's one of those internet discussion things.
Yeah, and the revolver also, when you talk about novice shooters, you know, people tend to push them towards the revolver because it's less training time to master the revolver. I mean, it's easy to get the hang of.
Yeah.
It's simple.
Well, a lot of times I know that people will say, oh, I have a girlfriend that wants to get a gun, and almost everybody will say, get her a double action revolver because it's so simple, as if perhaps women don't have the mental capacity that men have, or that they're easily confused by, you know, complex devices. But I think from a reliability standpoint is what you're talking about. The revolver is just super simple. You grab it, pull the trigger, and it's going to fire. And it's double action, so there's no cocking, there's no strikers or anything like that to worry about. It's just a very simple mechanism, and they are cool.
I think it's definitely a negative stereotype when, you know, just say females should always start with a revolver.
No.
And it just comes with the level of training that a revolver is easier to master, so people tend to push them towards it because it's that they can get into it easily and master it.
It's kind of like when people say, oh, your first gun, we'll buy a 22.
Right.
And I don't really go along with that line of thought. I'm like, buy something you're going to shoot for a long time. Don't buy something you're going to get bored with in 3 months and then go buy what you really wanted.
Right.
You know, especially a defensive arm, you don't want to. And with regards to defensive arms, what do you recommend? Now, I have my own opinions. I've written blog posts about it. With regards to caliber, you know, what's the bottom end that you think is a safe caliber or a good caliber for personal defense? Do you go down to 25 auto? Do you go to 32 auto, 389 millimeter? What's your personal opinion on caliber?
You know what? With the availability of small 9 millimeters nowadays, it's hard to push somebody for a same size in, let's say, a 380. So historically, when you're looking at Walther PPKs, Beretta 84s, they were larger 380s.
Yeah.
You know, even larger than what 9 millimeters are now.
And this is a really small SIG 9 millimeter.
So
very tiny.
So to recommend a larger 380 for inside the waistband carry is as long as they can handle the 9 millimeter now in the modern single stacks. You know, it's really kind of killing the old larger 380s as far as practicality. The round is cheaper. It has a little bit more knockdown power. You know, all those arguments come into play.
Sure.
But the 380s have found their niche in the small pocket guns as well, and they definitely have their use.
Yeah, I think 380 is the absolute bare minimum for me. prefer a 9. Now the next thing that people might be concerned with is cost, right? A lot of people are trying to get the best value they can. They're not gun people. They don't want to spend, you know, $800 in H&K. They're looking for something more like the KELTEC line in terms of what they're willing to spend. Sure. So what do you recommend? I mean, do you think that the KELTEC PF9 like this is a good defensive gun in terms of something you think that's reliable, well made, that'll serve somebody's purposes? Or would you say, well, no, spend a little bit more money maybe and step up to the Ruger in the same caliber? I know this is a 380 and that's a 9, but this is available in 9 millimeters. So, I mean, do you try to steer people towards things more like the Ruger, or do you not make any recommendations like that? If they take an interest in the PF9, just, you know, let them look at it and buy it? I mean, how do you guys handle that stuff?
As a dealer, I have an advantage of you know, selling a lot of guns and seeing what comes back with issues. And you know, the longer that you're on the side of the counter, you realize that there's no gun that's 100% reliable.
Very true.
So what you want to do is you want to make sure that the gun has a good warranty, or at least be aware of the warranty. And you know, you want to stick with probably a more well-known company with good customer service. And really, most modern firearms with, you know, the major manufacturers are building are reliable. Yeah. But it just depends on which style fits you. So a 299 KELTEC could be a completely reliable gun for you.
I know a lot of people like them.
Oh,
I'm not bashing KELTEC anyway. Yeah.
No, absolutely. But some of the features may not agree with you. You want to move something else up.
Sure.
But you know, as long as you're aware, you know, there are some manufacturers out there that are, I see a lot of them back. I don't recommend them, and I won't stock them. People come in and ask me, you know, I'm not going to drop manufacturers' names here, but
sure,
people come in and ask me what I think about this gun, and you know, I'll tell them, well, we've seen issues with them. There's a reason I don't have them on my wall. If you have an issue with one, you can bring it. I'll send it out, but I'm not going to do it on my own penny.
Yep.
Type thing.
So the last thing I want to talk about is holsters. Now, we picked a sample of holsters off the wall over there. We found a handgun here, the G26, that we had a lot of holsters available for here. So there's different types of holsters that you can use to carry these firearms. There's the outside the waistband carry. There's the inside the waistband carry, which are the most common. Then there's the shoulder holsters, which, do you guys sell much shoulder holsters anymore? Do people still buy those things?
Not really anymore. You know, shoulder holsters, and you know, people are wearing a lot less suit jackets and stuff.
Yeah.
In the winter, you see a little bit of a pickup in those, but they're expensive to get a good quality shoulder holster. And like I said, for convenience of carry, these smaller guns and inside the waistband are definitely the most popular.
I love inside the waistband, but a good outside the waistband holster like this GLOCK, which fits. Now, leather tends to be a little tight, so I might not be able to get this fully seated. Leather, yeah, you have to really fit the gun to the leather. I can do a whole video on how to get a leather holster to work with your gun, get it, you know, broken in. But these types of holsters have a nice rake forward to them, so they're meant to be worn just behind the hip, so you can grab the pistol. Outside the waistband, fairly concealable. Not nearly as good as an inside the waistband holster. What do you have for an inside the waistband? Well, let's take a look at the Serpa. It's right here. The other thing that some folks want is retention. They're nervous that having the firearm on their side invites somebody to snatch the firearm from them and use it against them. And that's why holsters like the Serpa, which, if you guys know me at all, I'm not a huge fan of the Serpa by any means. But the Serpa has active retention. By that I mean, if this is belted to your holster, your holster's belted to you via your belt strap or your belt, you can't get this gun out of the holster unless you grab it and push this button and pull up. You also, if you start pulling up and then hit the button, you're not going to get it out. So somebody that doesn't know what they're doing isn't going to get this gun out of the holster. The downside is, unless you practice an awful lot with this particular type of holster, you might not be able to get your gun out either. And then there's always the text grabber mishap, which you know, could happen with a striker-fired pistol like the G26 or even a single action like the 1911.
Now, the one thing that I have noticed with the, you know, the Kydex style holsters is they, especially this style, do tend to sit off the body a little bit more. They're not quite as concealable as a lot of leather holsters, but they do tend to be a little bit less expensive. They are good quality. It just depends. You know, the leathers tend to form around the body a little bit better, hold a little bit closer, and you can pull a shirt on over it.
And the Kydex I like because the Kydex doesn't hold moisture, doesn't keep it against the gun. Now with a gun like the GLOCK, you don't have to worry about that. With its Tenifer finish, you're going to be hard pressed to cause corrosion. But if you have something like this, is this a DeSantis or a Galco?
That's a Galco.
There's another Galco. And this is another option. This is outside the waistband, carried on your hip like this, but it has a thumb brake. Again, it gives you a little bit of retention. Most holsters, even the kydex that don't have active retention like the Serpa, the gun will snap into the holster. They fit so tightly that they snap in, and you usually have an adjustment screw that you can adjust the tension. Even with some other holsters like this, you can do that. But if you're still not comfortable with that, you can do the top strap. And again, this is a brand new leather holster. I'll probably not be able to get the pistol in here. Yeah, I don't want to do it because I'll be pulling on it all afternoon. But once you get the pistol in there, you can snap this top strap across the top. And now, to get the pistol out, you have to break that, and if the pistol's here, it'll hold it. You break that, and then you can draw your pistol. I'm not a fan of any types of retention like this. I think it's just a potential roadblock, but it's all up to individual
it's just like
preference.
picking a gun, different features for different people.
Absolutely. And then what do you have for inside the waistband? We have...
I do have the leather that they do make that with and without retention. That's the steer hide, so it's a little bit thinner. It's easier to go in and out right off the bat. You don't have a big break-in period.
And there are so many holsters out there. No gun shop could ever hope to carry all the different types of holsters that are out there. But this is an example of an inside the waistband holster that, let's see if I can get this one. I'm sure it's going to fit in there just fine. But this is a very simple holster that has the retention strap across the top. And as he said, it's available without it, but it just slides inside your pants, and your belt goes through here and it holds it in place. So this is the type of holster inside the waistband that I prefer to carry most of the time, even in the summer, in the winter, whatever. I really do like the inside the waistband holsters. All right, well guys, if you have any questions about what you saw here this afternoon on this particular episode, you can ask those questions on our Facebook page. You can find us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/militaryarms. You can also swing by thebankswitch.com, which is our blog. You can find us there at www.thebankswitch.com. Thanks for watching, everybody. Also, if you have any ideas for a future episode of Shop Talk, you can ask those questions in the comments below. We'll see if we can make a video for you. Thanks for watching, everybody.